According to new campaign finance reports, Democrats are actually outpacing Republicans in fundraising in two very closely watched races. Here to discuss that with us, WRAL state government reporter Bryan Anderson. Bryan, let's start by describing what's going on with the U.S. Senate race. Of course, this is the seat that's going to be open after Republican Richard Burr steps down. What are the numbers showing us?
Yeah, so this is the contest between Republican Congressman Ted Budd and U.S. Senate candidate Cheri Beasley. She's on the Democratic side, former state Supreme Court Chief Justice. And these new campaign financial reports from their campaign show Beasley has the upper hand. Now, she entered July with over $4.8 million. That's compared to Budd's $1.8 million. Obviously, that's a sizable difference. Beasley also raised almost 3 times more than Budd from April 28th to June 30th. Now, there's certainly going to be lots of outside spending in the race in the months to come, so things could tighten up here.
So what are the polls showing? We know that having money helps when you're trying to run for a political seat. Are we seeing any change in the polls right now? What do those look like?
Well, WRAL had a poll last month that showed Beasley with a 4 percentage point lead. Now, that lead was still within the margin of error, and other polls have Budd at a slight edge. So there's a lot of unknowns here. What we don't know is whether the Supreme Court's recent opinion on abortion access will motivate voters to the polls or whether it'll benefit one party over another. And let's not forget about the economy, which is obviously the biggest issue for many voters. Now, in the meantime, both candidates are hitting the campaign trail to hammer home the importance of their party in an evenly split U.S. Senate getting the power.
Now, of course, that's a race that's going to be getting national attention. So is the congressional district race that's going to be focusing on here in the Triangle. What can you tell us about that race?
Yeah, so this is the race between Republican political newcomer Bo Hines and Democratic State Senator Wiley Nickel. The new campaign finance numbers show Hines with about 1/5 of the cash that Nichols has. Hines began July with about $103,000 in the bank. Nickel had a little more than $500,000.
Wow. So, of course, they're going to be careful about what they say after we get some news like this. But what are the campaigns telling us about this report?
Well, for U.S. Senate candidate Cheri Beasley, she's saying that this is evidence that she's the person with the grassroots support. Budd says this is a sign that Beasley's more focused on donors than speaking with voters. For Nichols' campaign, he's trying to argue that Hines doesn't have local support either. And Hines' campaign says there's a reason for that, and that's because he had a competitive primary back in May, whereas Nickel did not. Interesting
how we can get so many different opinions on the same exact report. Yeah. Thank you so much, Bryan. Appreciate that. We will definitely continue to follow these races. Thanks to Bryan for the breakdown, and you can find the latest numbers by going to nccapital.com.